The primary Senate fight in Ohio is reaching a nasty new level in its final stretch. I want to take a look at these headlines. Ohio's Republican U.S. Senate primary is heading for a brutal finale, being described as a quote-unquote slugfest, increasingly personal attacks as it ends on a, quote, vicious note. You got three Republicans in a tight race to challenge Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown in November, a race that could be, by the way, critical in determining who controls the Senate. NBC's Henry Gomez is crisscrossing the state, heading to campaign events as we speak. So he joins us on the phone. Also with us is NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray and Rick Wilson, co-founder of the Lincoln Project and a former GOP strategist. Henry, start us off, if you will. You live in Ohio. You've been following this thing incredibly closely. How vicious are we getting here? What's at stake?
Well, Yasmin, as you mentioned, this is shaping up to be a very close race between Trump-endorsed Bernie Moreno and State Senator Matt Dolan. And Dolan is someone who's kept Trump at more of a distance. I was just at a coffee house in Ottawa, Ohio, with Moreno and Kari Lake, who's been stumping with him across the state these last few days. And Lake repeatedly referred to Dolan as Mitt Dolan, a reference to Mitt Romney, or she called him the doormat. And she seems to have picked up the baton from Donald Trump, who over the weekend rallied for Moreno and attacked Dolan over his family's decision 3 years ago to change the name of the Major League Baseball team they own from the Cleveland Indians to the Cleveland Guardians. So there's that nastiness there. You've got allies of Bernie Moreno who are flooding the state in the final days, saying that this is basically a battle between MAGA and the old guard Republican establishment, because Matt Dolan has the support of Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. They're going to campaign together tonight in Columbus. And DeWine is popular with independent swingy voters, not so popular with the right flank of his Republican Party anymore, but somebody who can make a difference in a really close race. And that is what's fueling these rhino attacks from Trump and Bernie Moreno and Kari Lake. But Dolan's clearly surged in the polls, and that's why Trump and Moreno are treating him like an urgent threat. Now, lastly, I should mention there is a third candidate in this primary, Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose. He started the race with the highest name recognition and a lot of promise, but he lacks the money that Moreno and Dolan have. Those two are independently wealthy. They've got vast resources to advertise their message. LaRose hasn't had that, so he has not been able to make a positive case for himself on TV in these closing weeks. And this is why it looks like we're ending at a two-person race, the Trump side versus the establishment.
So it took us a moment to get to LaRose, but we are taking a live look right now at LaRose at an event there in Ohio as you were speaking of him. And it seems has become a two-man race. Henry Gomez, I'll let you get back to it. Thank you for joining us on this. Appreciate it. Mark Murray, take us through it, right? We know there are three guys in this race and how integral and important this is, especially come November, Senate control for Republicans. All that being said, what are the polls looking like?
Yeah, and so the polling right now, Yasmin, is that we haven't seen a lot of good high-quality polling that meets NBC News' standards. But the stuff that's out there, as well as the perception of the race, is that this is a very close and competitive contest, particularly between Dolan right now, as Henry was mentioning, as well as Moreno. And in a lot of ways, Yasmin, I'm almost kind of seeing this as a replay of what we ended up seeing in 2022's Republican Senate primary, where J.D. Vance ended up emerging in a three-way contest as that Republican Party's nominee. He ended up getting the endorsement from Donald Trump, but notably, he only ended up winning 32% of the vote that time around. And this, I think, just showing you how close things can end up being. You know, you might only need to have 32 to 35% of the vote to be able to win in this three-way race right now. And while having Donald Trump's endorsement, as Moreno does, has benefited a lot of Republicans over the last several years, Donald Trump's endorsed candidates don't always win. And so I do think that it's important to keep that in mind. Moreno might have a little bit of an advantage with that Trump endorsement, but it isn't locked up. And I think we're going to have to count the votes all night tomorrow night.
Let's talk Rick Moreno first and then Dolan as well. And as Mark just said, obviously reminding folks that Moreno did get the endorsement of Donald Trump. All that being said, I know that we were out on the trail talking to some voters, and they had some reaction as to what they would do if, in fact, their candidate, Moreno, did not win, how they would vote come November. Let's take a listen to that, Rick, and then we'll talk.
If Moreno doesn't end up winning the nomination, will you support LaRose or would sit the Senate race out, watching what Dolan has done in this campaign.
So you would sit the race out if it doesn't?
I would do. I would the same exact thing Nance just said.
Do you think it's important, though, for the Republican Party to unite after this race or no?
I think it's very important that the Republican Party unite. Absolutely.
I think it's fascinating, that last question, saying, do you think it's important for the Republican Party to unite after this kind of brutal Senate race? And saying, yes, it's important to unite. However, I would sit it out if Moreno did not, in fact, win this primary. How critical is this? What do you make of that?
Look, they have an opportunity here. Sherrod Brown has always been a strong campaigner, but Ohio is increasingly a red state. They have a chance here to change the ball game, give Mitch McConnell and the Republican team a pickup if they did it right. But it looks like, and again, as Mark points out, there's not a lot of high-quality polling in Ohio right now, but it looks like a close race with Moreno ahead. And the problem for the Republicans is they've increasingly become a culture of, if they don't get what they want in a primary, they just don't do it. They just stay home. That's sort of the blackmail, the emotional blackmail of the MAGA part of the party, is that if they don't get their candidate, then they'll walk away. And, you know, there is a chance that Matt Dolan still pulls this out. He's done a much better operational campaign. He's doing early voting, early turnout stuff. But, you know, Moreno has that Trump buzz. And if they don't get who they want, you know, they will sort of stomp off in a huff, I think, and maybe make the race a lot more competitive for Brown.
But for Dolan's part, they're saying, listen, if we want to actually win this seat come November and beat Sherrod Brown, then we need to pull in the independents. And Dolan's going to be the one who's going to be pulling in the independents. For Moreno's part, though, sure. I know that he was speaking and talking about how he feels as if this vote is a referendum on, per your point here, the Republican Party. Let's take a listen to what he said and then talk.
Okay.
President Trump, Jim Jordan, J.D. Vance, view of the party, which is who's endorsed me, or do you want to go back to the Bush, Cheney, Mitt Romney vision of the party? That's the question. A vote for Dolan is a vote for 1980s Republicans that we thought were extinct, but unfortunately they haven't. But on Tuesday, we'll make it finally extinct here in Ohio.
You think this message is going to resonate, or are people starting to recognize the importance of the swing vote, the swingy independent vote that could pull out actually a Republican seat in November?
There is a part of this when you look at Moreno's all the scandals surrounding Moreno in the last few days, his sort of overall presentation as a hyper far MAGA extremist. You know, he looks to independents like the Carrie Lake of Doug Mastrianos. He looks like another one of those poison candidates that makes it through the MAGA primary, but then it has a much lower percentage chance of actually winning a statewide race. And so I think we will end up with, you know, a disunified party, and he will not have that opportunity to pick up additional votes in those soft Republicans, in those suburban Democrats who are sometimes a little more conservative in Ohio, among some of those independent conservative leaning voters in Ohio. Moreno may be a little bit too much. And, you know, if there's one thing about a guy who gets caught on an adult site like that, there's probably more. And so I think that if you were at the NRSC working for Mitch McConnell, you're pulling for Dolan.
All right. Rick Wilson, thank you. Mark Murray, thank you as well. We're going to be watching that race in Ohio incredibly closely, especially as we get closer to November and see how this all turns out. Thanks, guys.